Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We've almost made it through another week. Thank you for joining me today for this webinar, Breaking Bottlenecks with Call Analytics. My name is Kevin Sweeney. I'm a Customer Success Manager here at Verify, and I will be your host for the day. As a quick reminder, this webinar is being recorded, so if you have to leave early, we'll send you a link to the recording once it's available. You can also visit our webinars page at www.verify.com/webinars to watch any of our previous webinars once they've been posted. If you do have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat panel. Good questions always make for a better webinar, so please don't hesitate to use that. We'll be answering those chats throughout the duration of the webinar, so we'll be looking forward to hearing from you. If you're not familiar with Verify, we specialize in analytics and management solutions for UC platforms like Cisco, WebEx Calling, Microsoft Teams, and Zoom Phone. We also offer migration assessments, so if you're in the process of moving to cloud calling or thinking about moving, we can help you get the data you need to make your migration as easy as possible. Now, I'm not going to dive too deep into those offerings today, but I do encourage you to check us out at verify.com if you're interested, or feel free to reach out to me for more information after this presentation. So just a quick overview for today. Today we're going to be discussing some of the most common bottlenecks that we see in call centers and UC networks today. Then we'll discuss how you can use call analytics to identify those bottlenecks, as well as some adjustments you can make to fix some of these issues. We'll also take a look at a few real-world examples of organizations who improve their call centers with call analytics. After that, I'll take a brief moment to answer any unanswered questions from the chat panel before finally getting to our Amazon gift card winners. All right, so with that, let's jump into things. So getting started, first, what am I talking about when I say bottlenecks? For me, a bottleneck in my UC network or call center is going to be anything that's causing inefficiencies or just generally decreases my customer satisfaction. With most organizations, there are typically four major ones that we see, and the ones on this list here tend to have the biggest negative impact on customer satisfaction. So we'll start with long wait times. One of the most significant bottlenecks in call centers we see is long wait times. Customers today are really expecting quick responses, and any extended waiting periods can lead to frustration or just decreased customer satisfaction. Now, long wait times can obviously have a wide range of causes, from things like being understaffed or having an inability to predict your peak call volume times. But overall, long wait times are going to be a pretty clear indicator of inefficiencies within your call center or network. We've also got high abandonment rates. This is something that can be a direct outcome, a number one, obviously. When customers are left waiting for too long, they're likely to abandon a call before they even speak with an agent. This is another one where the causes could be a number of things, but if you have high abandonment rates, you're definitely going to want the ability to be able to audit your system and find out what's going wrong. And this is something we see quite a lot of. It's something we covered more in depth in our last month's webinar. So if you're interested, you can check that out. I will post a link to it here. But essentially what was happening was, one of our clients had a ring out. So, somebody would pick up a phone and dial in, and it would ring through one hunt group and then a second hunt group and then a third hunt group. And, if it didn't get disconnected, it would just put them through that cycle again. So I don't know about you, but I think I'm probably good for about 60 seconds of ring time before I'm hanging up a call. So this is one that's obviously pretty detrimental to customer satisfaction, because you'd be putting them in, an internal call loop without connecting them to who they need to speak to. And, this is one, kind of an example of high abandonment rates, but it also kind of leads nicely to the other one on this list, which is inefficient call routing. Effective call routing optimization is really crucial for minimizing wait times and ensuring customers are connected to the right agent quickly. Um, Inefficient call routing systems can obviously lead to long wait times and high abandonment rates as well. Um, so just, kind of an example of this, I think of one example from the past. We had a client who uh, essentially had a misconfigured trigger, right? So, customers were calling in and they would essentially hit a queue, but there was no music, no nothing. It was just dead air, never rang on any agents. And, this had been going on for some time because the only way they found out about it was because they had some people that called in and were complaining, that, hey, my calls have not been getting answered, so they had to call back, right? Now, the problem with that is, not everybody that experiences that is going to call back and complain. And additionally, not every agent that hears that complaint is going to necessarily relay that to, somebody else that matters or who's going to be able to fix that issue. So in this case, they had this problem going on for quite a long time, where customers were basically getting stuck in dead zones. And they had absolutely no idea what was going on. And through extra visibility with call analytics, we're kind of able to use a combination of contact center reporting and CUCM reporting to isolate some of these calls with the high wait times and some of these calls that complain, and then go back with that to, the CDR call manager data. And what we found was the trigger numbers that had a problem, and then we were able to resolve and isolate those trigger numbers throughout the contact center pretty quickly. But essentially without call analytics, that could have been an extremely long process to try to figure out what was happening. And last one on this list is lengthy call durations. Long call durations can obviously be a bottleneck that reduces your overall call center efficiency. Long calls might indicate that agents need additional training. Maybe your processes are too complex, or maybe customers are not being as effectively pre-screened by any IVR systems that you might have in place. And this is another thing that's not uncommon, especially when dealing with call centers or anything like that, where you have an idea of what your average call length should be. So that's kind of another common report that you can look at when dealing with call data is agent metrics. Where hey, I've got most of my agents, the average call time the average call duration is 2 to 3 minutes. But I've got one agent over here that his average call time is 7 to 8 minutes, and he's performing the same function as everybody else. So what's the issue there? Is he maybe just a little bit more talkative? Or is this a case where somebody generally doesn't know where to go within a system or how to navigate the system? Maybe it's a point of sale system or some type of healthcare system, and they just don't know because they're not familiar enough and need some additional training. So this is a great way to be able to recognize that is by looking at your duration, your call lengths of your agents. But it certainly does represent a pretty big bottleneck in a lot of call centers. So with those being some of the main efficiencies most of the call centers or UC networks are going to face, the next thing to kind of think about in this equation is how can we actually leverage call data to identify these bottlenecks. Well, number one is real-time monitoring and dashboards. As much as I love the simplicity of running weekly reports and having those reports automated, there is something that's not quite comparable when we're talking about real-time monitoring and dashboards, because these are going to provide valuable insights into current call volumes, wait times, agent availability, agent status. This type of information is going to allow managers to quickly identify issues such as agents in ring no answer states. maybe agents struggling on a call that need assistance, or agents that have been away from their desk for an extended period. Just having this real-time visibility, really kind of enables proactive intervention and improved operational efficiency. Basically these dashboards are going to be ones that, you set up, and they're going to be giving you real-time agent information that lets you know, instantly if there's an agent that's having a problem with their phone, or if an agent is in a ring no answer state, which prevents them from being able to receive a call. It's also a great way to keep a handle on, those work from home agents as well. Something else we're constantly talking about is remote work. That's obviously pretty prevalent, and it doesn't look like it's going anywhere anytime soon. So this is just another great tool to have to be able to remotely manage a team. Those agent status widgets on these dashboards are going to be huge, right? Because they're going to let you know all about the agent status and how long they've been in those particular states. Identifying if somebody's been out to lunch for 2 hours, or if there's an agent that's been on the phone with a customer for an extremely long time. Kind of going back to the bottlenecks we just discussed, this is going to help you with those long call durations, because, this gives managers the ability to go ahead and recognize quickly that, maybe an agent is struggling answering some questions, so then the manager can either go ahead and barge in and maybe listen to that call, or they can go to the agent, tap them on the shoulder, and just ask them if they need some assistance, see what the problems are that they're having. But, just being able to see this information real time is really where that real power comes in, because without some type of real time monitoring, you could have agents that are struggling, for an hour and a half, and you would really have no idea what's going on. All right, the next one we've got is historical data analysis. Historical data analysis, it allows for tracking agent performance over time, identifying training needs, and understanding call volume patterns. Typically for new hires, the expectation is that their talk times will decrease and their call volumes are going to increase as they gain experience. So analyzing trends in call volumes, abandonment rates, and queue times can also reveal staffing needs during peak periods, things like holidays for retail business. But this long-term analysis is really kind of crucial for proper staffing and resource allocation. So historical data analysis, when I think about this, is really going to be about understanding agent performance over time, as well as queue-based performance over time. From an agent perspective, like I just mentioned, when you have a new hire, for example, the expectation there is their call duration is going to go down and their call volume should go up. So being able to see that trend, where if I started 3 months ago, I can run a report over the course of 3 months, for myself or the new employee in this case. And, over the course of 3 months, you can identify, hey, we're seeing improvements here, or, like we talked about before, if we recognize, hey, maybe there's a training problem. Our training's not as effective as it needs to be, or there's some aspect of training that we're missing, for some of our new hires. There's also things like trending over time to, understand your call volumes for peak hours, days, as well as peak months. So when we start talking about trending, we want to look at the long-term picture, maybe over a year, right? If you're in a retail location, your holidays are clearly going to be your busiest time of the year. But when does that actually kick in, right? So, do we need to make sure that we're staffed well enough? When does that start though, right? Is that November? Is it early November? Maybe it begins as early as October, so looking at those trends over a year or two, 2 years is going to give you a clear depiction from a staffing perspective when you really need to make sure that you're staffed well enough to be able to handle the volume. And you're going to be doing that by looking at things like call volumes, duration, abandonment rates, and queue times. Those are all indications of, your call volume when it's successful. If you're not struggling, you're going to have a short you're going to have a low amount of abandoned calls. You'll have a controlled or respectable queue time. But if you start to see those things trending upwards, like queue times or abandonment rates, that's a kind of clear depiction where if it's a consistent trend, it means you're probably running into staffing issues. And kind of going hand in hand with that is, pattern recognition. Utilizing that historical data to identify trends and anomalies, kind of like we just talked about. This is going to include recognizing when call volumes start to increase leading up to busy seasons, or identifying shifts in the busiest day of the week from one day to the next, depending on industry. This data is going to allow managers to be able to adjust staffing levels, agent schedules, and adjust call routing to better match demand and just generally improve your service levels. And again, this is one that really kind of ties in to the previous one. But, it's understanding, looking at the graphs or the data to understand where your patterns are for call volume, right? Like we just mentioned, is my call volume start going up in October, or is it mid-November when I see the influx? Am I seeing a huge drop, shortly after the holidays in January? Another example we talk about a lot is just like on a week-to-week basis. Previously, in the past, call centers their peak volume days were typically on Mondays. Everybody's calling in on a Monday. But over the years, we start to see a change, and now those peak times are on Tuesdays. So you're able to adjust staffing, things like that. Which leads me kind of right into the next one, just call volume analysis. Right? Understanding call volume patterns is pretty essential for efficient call center management. Here you have identifying peak times, right? Analyzing when call volumes are highest to ensure you've got adequate staffing during these periods. Predictive scheduling, right? Using historical call volume data to forecast trends and schedule your agents accordingly. And then load balancing, right? Distributing calls evenly across available agents to prevent overload and reduce wait times. Through this call volume analysis, you can make determinations, in other words, let's say, for example, I've got QA that's got 10 agents and QB, they've got maybe 5 agents. But we see that, QA with 10 agents, they've got like no abandoned calls, right? Their queue times are all relatively low. In other words, they've probably got staff to spare, right? Where maybe QB, their metrics aren't, they're not doing quite as well. So they don't have staff to spare, right? Their queue times are not as great. They could be improved. So, maybe they have a little bit more of an abandon rate than you would prefer. So just understanding, the trends across, the queues will kind of clearly let me see that, hey, I can pull an agent off of QA because I don't necessarily need them there. All their metrics are good. And I can move them over to QB where they clearly need much more help. Or sometimes you can do that during hours, recognizing your busy hour patterns. I can say, hey, you know what? QA is relatively busy at 9 and 10 o'clock, but QB is not, where they're really busy, around noon. So maybe I can say, hey, let's pull some agents from QA and move them to QB during the noon hour, but I need them there in the morning. So just recognizing these patterns is going to help you load balance and make sure your calls are distributed as evenly as possible among your agents. Really just the insights that you're going to gain from analyzing queue performance, abandonment rates, and call volumes across different queues is really going to help you inform staffing decisions. If one queue is overwhelmed, while the other has access capacity, you can make adjustments accordingly. Similarly, understanding your peak hour patterns can kind of allow for strategic staffing throughout the day so you can meet your demand. And if you're meeting your demand, you're going to have, lower wait times, lower abandonment rates, and just help with those other inefficiencies we mentioned. Another thing that you're going to want to look at is agent performance metrics. Right? Monitoring agent performance is going to be crucial for identifying inefficiencies and areas for improvements across your call centers. Some of the key metrics, that you want to look at is average handle time, right? Measuring the duration of calls to identify agents who need additional support or training, like we mentioned. Things like first call resolution, tracking the percentage of calls resolved on the first attempt. This is a pretty critical indicator of agent effectiveness. And then, customer satisfaction scores, right? If you're collecting feedback from customers to gauge agent performance and service quality, after the call through some third party, that information can be hugely helpful in making adjustments in your call center to improve your efficiency. Kind of going more into first call resolution rates. High first call resolution rates are going to be kind of indicative of a well-functioning call center. So analyzing them is pretty important. You can use them in identifying common issues, right? Analyzing the type of calls that are typically resolved on the first attempt, when compared to those that require follow-up. Agent training needs, right? Highlighting areas where agents might need additional training to improve their problem-solving skills. And then just general process improvements, identifying any procedural changes you can make that will, enhance FCR rates and overall efficiency. So with, first call resolution, basically when I think of this, I need to see how many calls come in multiple times. In other words, let's say I'm like a retail store. I don't want my customers in this case calling in 2 or 3 times a day. Because really, they shouldn't have to. They don't need to call in 2 or 3 times to get their issues solved. And if that's the case, then the agents they're speaking with probably aren't getting the job done, at the first time. So in order to lessen your volume, you want to be able to make sure your agents are trained well enough to really be able to answer those calls and, not have them be short answered. Right, solving them the first time. So that way, if a customer calls back because they didn't quite understand, now they're taking up 2 agents' time, right? And you've got a customer that's not happy because they've had to try to call in twice just to get an answer. So, recognizing how often your callers are calling and having to call back repeatedly can be really important to managing your efficiency within call centers. Another thing to, kind of improve your efficiency in call centers is your IVR systems, right? If you're not familiar with IVR systems, those are, interactive voice response systems in call centers that will typically try to resolve an issue before routing you to an agent. So in these cases, if you are utilizing these setups, you want to have your call abandonment analysis, right? You want to be able to identify points in an IVR menu where callers are most likely to hang up. You want to be able to optimize your menu, right? Streamlining your IVRs, to make them more user-friendly and efficient. And then kind of track your self-service success rates. Measuring how often customers can resolve their issues through IVR system without needing to speak to an agent, because that one's huge. That's kind of the main point of IVRs. So if you have good self-service success rates, you should have some good efficiency in your call center. So those are kind of the main points on dealing with bottlenecks in call centers and UC networks. I know we're kind of running short on time here, so I just wanted to cover some real-world examples briefly, something that we see in real time. One of them is Jersey Community Hospital, right? One of the challenges they faced was, with real-time data in their call center. Administrative change tracking and call detail record retention, all of these things were kind of impacting their patient care, as well as their regulatory compliance. After we worked with them for a little bit and implemented the call analytics solution, we were kind of able to give them deeper visibility into their call environment, so more efficient CDR reporting and kind of streamline their management operations. So this kind of improved their compliance and allowed them to quickly identify call issues and enhance their service quality through better resource management, in their call centers. Another one is Cydia cameras, right? They struggled to kind of manage their high volumes and optimize their staffing without, insights into their call routing or their peak hours. So after having some additional visibility and being able to track those trends, we were able to help them identify when their peak times actually were, so they can make optimized staffing decisions, right? And when they improve the staffing efficiency, it improved their call handling process, and kind of allowed them more enhanced decision making and kind of performance monitoring among their agents. And then last, Hewish Outdoors. They needed more detailed reports into a WebEx calling environment to kind of improve their group call management. So here, we were able to build them some custom reporting features, which provided extra visibility in their call data, which also allowed them, more efficient resource allocation and also performance monitoring there as well. The kind of outcome of this was they were able to make better staffing decisions, and proactive agent training based on some of the data insights we were seeing. So just kind of as an overview of everything today, call analytics is clearly a pretty valuable tool for identifying bottlenecks in call centers and just generally UC networks. By using real-time monitoring and historical data analysis to identify trends, organizations are going to be able to gain pretty valuable insights into their performance and make decisions to boost that efficiency. With the right tools, like looking at the right things, call volume analysis, agent performance, implementing IVR systems and tracking their effectiveness, call centers are going to be able to pinpoint a lot of these major inefficiencies and be able to implement targeted improvements to address these. So, through call analytics, you'll really be able to improve, efficiency, providing better experiences for your customers, kind of increase your call center ROI. Insights from call analytics are going to enable both immediate problem solving and kind of proactive prevention of future issues, like we talked about. So with that, let's see if there are any other unanswered questions. I see one. Can a solution like Verify monitor what is going on within an IVR? We can see a call as it leaves an IVR. We don't necessarily get to see what's going on in the system itself, but we can still build some reports to get an idea of what's going on. So what does that mean? That means, let's say I go to a hunt group. We can build a report that says, how many times I pressed 1 based on the fact that you came from the IVR and went directly to this specific hunt group. So, we can't tell you what is going on in the system, but we still can have some visibility into it based on the outcome with just some, customizable reporting features. So if that is something you want to see more of, feel free to reach out to me after this and we can have a conversation about that. And with that is it for today's webinar. I want to thank everybody for joining me today, and please visit verify.com/bottleneck to get the PDF version of this presentation. There is some more in-depth information on what we covered here today in that white paper. So, I absolutely encourage you guys to check that out. If you are interested in learning more about any of our offerings, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at any point. You can reach out to me at kevin@verify.com. And I'll be more than happy to help you, learn about getting some more visibility in your networks and how we can help you deal with some of these issues in your call center or UC networks. So with that, have a great day, everybody, and we will see you next month.